She's a 4-time Olympic gold medalist. She owns the world record in the 400 hurdles. Everyone thought they knew exactly what Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone would do next. Then she shocked the entire track world. In 2025, she made a bold switch nobody saw coming. She ditched her signature event and competed exclusively in the flat 400 meters. What happened next broke records and changed everything. Here's the untold story. When Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone walked into the 2024 Paris Olympics, she was the undisputed queen of the 400 hurdles. She'd set the world record multiple times. She'd beaten everyone. She was untouchable. Her time of 50.37 seconds stood as the fastest anyone had ever run that event. It felt impossible to beat. But something shifted in her mind after Paris ended. Most athletes would stay in their lane. They'd keep doing what made them champions. Not Sydney. She started thinking about something different, something bigger, something nobody expected from a 4-time Olympic gold medalist at the peak of her career. She started talking to her coach, Bobby Kersey, about the flat 400 meters. This wasn't a random idea. Sydney had tried this before. Back in 2023, she competed in the flat 400 meters and won the national title. But then injury stopped her from going to Worlds that year. Most people forgot about it. Most people thought it was just a one-time experiment. Sydney didn't forget. She kept thinking about it. After the 2024 Olympics, she made the decision. For 2025, she would shift her entire focus. She would skip the 400 hurdles. She would run the flat 400 meters exclusively, and she would do it on the biggest stage in track and field, the World Championships in Tokyo. This decision shocked everyone. The track world was split. Half thought she was chasing a ghost, the other half knew better than to bet against her. Here's a woman who broke the world record in hurdles 6 times. She's the best to ever do it in that event. Why would she abandon what made her legendary? Why would she take on a new event where other runners had spent their entire careers perfecting the craft? Sydney answered that question at the U.S. Outdoor Championships in August 2025. She ran 48.90 seconds and won her second national title in the flat 400 meters. She beat Isabella Whitaker by 0.31 seconds. She improved to 6-0 lifetime in 400-meter finals. The message was clear. She wasn't playing around. But the real test was coming. The World Championships were just weeks away. When Sydney arrived in Tokyo in September, the pressure was intense. She'd faced doubters her entire career, but this was different. This time, even her own fans weren't sure. The flat 400 meters had been dominated by runners, like Marita Koch from Dominican Republic. Paulino was the Olympic champion. She'd been training in this event her whole life. Sydney was switching events in the middle of her career. In the semifinal, Sydney ran 48.29 seconds. This time shattered the American record. She broke a record that had stood for exactly 19 years, of 48.29. But more importantly, she sent a message. She wasn't just competing, she was hunting records. But the final was 2 days away. And this is where everything exploded. When Sydney stepped into that final, she knew what was on the line. The world record for the flat 400 meters was 47.60 seconds. It was set by Marita Koch in 1985, over 40 years ago. Nobody had even come close to breaking it in 4 decades. Marita Koch, the Olympic champion, was in the form of her life. She was the woman to beat. Having dominated the Diamond League circuit all season, Sydney was about to enter a race with the greatest 400-meter runners alive. She got into her blocks. Her husband Andre watched from the stands, nervous like everyone else. The track was slick from the Tokyo rain, conditions that usually slow runners down. But for Sydney, it didn't matter. The gun went off. Sydney exploded from the blocks. She didn't stay in the blocks for long. Bobby Kersey's advice echoed in her head. Get out fast. Attack hard. She saw Marita Koch in the outer lane. She could use that. She could see her. She could compete. She ran with everything she had. Down the back stretch, Sydney was moving. By the 200 meters, she was in control. Every stride was perfect. Every breath was calculated. She wasn't thinking about records. She wasn't thinking about doubters. She was just running. Coming into the final 100 meters, Sydney kicked. She accelerated. The crowd went silent. Everyone watching knew they were seeing something historic. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone crossed the finish line in 47.78 seconds. The track exploded. She'd just run the second fastest 400-meter time in history. She set a new championship record. She beat Marilady Paulino, who also ran under 48 seconds. For the first time ever, two women dipped below 48 seconds in a single 400-meter race. With that win, Sydney became the first athlete in history to hold World Championship gold medals in both the 400-meter hurdles and the flat 400-meter. She is officially the most versatile long sprinter to ever live. But here's what's wild. The world record of 47.60 is still standing. It's still untouchable. But Sydney came closer than anyone in 40 years. She ran 47.78. She proved that record can be beaten. She proved it's not impossible anymore. After the race, Sydney was asked if she regretted leaving the hurdles. "I knew there were a lot of people doubting me with making the switch from 400-meter hurdles to the flat 400-meter. But ultimately, I had faith in my training," she said. "I knew I had it in me. It was just a matter of time." That statement tells you everything about Sydney's mindset. She wasn't scared. She wasn't uncertain. She knew exactly what she could do. The doubters didn't bother her. She believed in herself and her coach's plan. Here's the craziest part about 2025. Sydney was named World Athlete of the Year, not just for the 400-meter win, for everything, for taking a massive risk and making it work, for proving that champions can reinvent themselves, for showing that stepping outside your comfort zone at the peak of your career is possible if you have faith. Fans were losing it on social media. Track analysts were shocked. Running websites couldn't stop talking about it. She dominated the sport in hurdles, but now she'd created an entirely new legacy in the flat 400 meters. The debate started immediately. What would she do next? Sydney answered that question in early 2025. She wasn't done pushing limits. She spoke about wanting to break that 47.60 world record. She said she didn't rule out doing both events at the 2028 LA Olympics. She was already planning her next move, while the world was still celebrating this one. But then life threw a curveball. In January 2026, Sydney announced she was pregnant with her first child. She would step away from competition for the 2026 season. She and her husband, Andre Levrone, were becoming parents. The woman who just dominated the World Championships would take a year off. This is actually brilliant timing. 2026 has no major global championships. It's the slower year. Sydney timed this perfectly around her elite career. She'll have time to return and prepare for the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics on home soil. When she comes back, the question will be clear. Can she break that 47.60 world record? Can she do both the 400 meters and 400 meters hurdles at Olympics? How much faster can she go? But that's a story for another day, because right now, the 2025 story is already complete. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone made a choice nobody expected. She switched events. She faced doubters. She broke records. She became World Athlete of the Year. She changed what we think is possible in track and field. And she did it all while proving that the greatest athletes aren't the ones who stay comfortable. They're the ones brave enough to restart, reinvent, and dominate all over again. That's the real reason Sydney ran the flat 400 meters in 2025. It wasn't just about chasing records. It was about proving to herself and the world that champions never stop pushing boundaries. The second fastest 400-meter time in history is just the beginning of her story.